Now, I know what some of you are thinking. It's May 5th, 2016. For Christ's sakes, it's Cinco de Mayo Day. Go drink a goddamn cerveza. What the hell is this asshole doing? A 2017 NFL mock draft. For Christ's sakes, we just got done with the 2016 NFL draft. Well, yes. Yes, this asshole did. This asshole did already do a 2017 NFL mock draft. And on top of that, not only did this a-hole do that, he went above and beyond what other people are doing, where these other panty-waist and lightweights are doing one-round mocks as an early preview to 2017. I did a not one, not two, but 3-round mock draft. I know that makes a lot of you want to stand up and say, F you, Jeff. Well, F you too. F you too. I did it. And here it is. You can check out all 3 rounds worth of picks in the description box down below. The reason why, very simply, that I would do something like this is because I love the draft. The 2016 draft is now over. The work for the 2017 draft has officially begun. So it's interesting to take an early look as kind of setting a foundation in place for what names to look out for, what prospects there are to watch, what positions could be strong or weak in this upcoming draft class. I enjoy this stuff, especially when you can go back and look a year later and see, what names ended up being where you thought they were going to be, what names went higher, what names didn't go as high. This could be fun, interesting stuff from a entirety of the process standpoint. Now, a few things to point out. Number one, I just used the draft order for round 1 from the 2016 NFL draft. I wasn't about to sit there and get all these arguments about, how dare you have my team as a top 5 pick? They will be awesome this year. Signed, fanboy of Cleveland. I don't care. It's way too freaking early for me to even think about predicting how the 2016 NFL season is going to play out. So I just kept the pick order from round 1 as it was, and then just transposed that pick order to round 2 and 3, because I'm not trying to figure out that formula for who's picking in round 2 and 3 where, okay? Number 2, in terms of the prospects themselves, some of the guys that I have ranked highly in terms of where they're getting picked, I expect to be picked high in the 2017 NFL mock draft. Some of them may not be. Some of them may rise even above that. Some of them may fall. This is as much as anything else about name awareness and prospect awareness than it is an exact science, especially this early in the process. For most of these guys in this mock draft, I've probably watched somewhere between 1 to 3 or maybe 4 games for each of them. So I am very, very early on in the process, as I should be right now. As you get maybe to August and the kickoff of the college football season, I might release a preliminary big board, because then I will have had a few months to watch a little more in depth on each of these prospects, watch more film, watch it repeatedly. Then I'd be able to start formulating my own opinions. Right now, I don't have a lot of strong or emphatic opinions or beliefs about prospects at this point in time. Also, this is about, to me, again, looking at what positions should be strong or should be weak in this draft class to come. So let's go ahead and talk about it just a little bit. In terms of the positions that I expect to be the strongest, running back looks like it's going to be a really, really strong class. You've got Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Royce Freeman, Sanjay Perrine, Nick Chubb, Christian McCaffrey, Wayne Gallman. There's a potential for all 7 of those running backs by at least a couple of NFL teams to carry first-round grades. This is an outstanding, again, I will emphasize again, an outstanding running back class. One of the best running back classes I have seen in quite some time. So if your team didn't get a marquee running back in round 1 in 2016, they could be in the market to get a really good one here in 2017. This should be one of the major stories of this next year's draft, is how strong this running back class is, especially when you look at the philosophy of all of these teams that have convinced themselves over the years of the propaganda that it's not worth taking running back in round 1. Now are you going to pass up on far superior talent at the running back position to hold stubbornly to that belief to take inferior prospects at other positions? It will be something that's going to be really interesting to see. And you'll see in this particular mock draft that I have a total of 5 running backs going in round number 1. But I do think potentially 7 of them could carry first-round grades for at least a couple of NFL teams apiece. Another position that will be stronger this year than it has been in years past, especially at the top, I think is the tight end position. You've got guys like Jordan Leggett and Bucky Hodges from Virginia Tech. You've got O.J. Howard, Jake Butt, Evan Engram. So you've got 5 bigger names right there, guys that could potentially go off the board in the first 2 rounds. So for a league that is desperate for playmakers at the tight end position, this upcoming draft looks to be a lot better in terms of providing help at that position. I also think this is going to be a really strong class in terms of defensive ends in the 4-3 edge rusher type guys. Myles, Garrett, Derek Barnett, Jonathan Allen, Deatrich Weiss, DeMarcus Walker, Deshaun Hand, Charles Harris, Lewis Neal, Kiamoko Toure. I mean, I can go on and on. This looks like it's going to be a really strong class of edge rushers for 4-3 defensive ends, 3-4 outside linebackers. So if you're a team that needs help there could be plenty of options there in this year's upcoming draft, with several of them being marquee first-round talent type of guys, in my opinion. I think the cornerback class is going to shape up to be better than the 2016 edition was. You've got Jalen Tabor, you've got Adoree Jackson, you've got Desmond King. So you've got, to me, arguably 3 guys that if any one of them was in the 2016 draft class, probably would have been arguably the #1 corner prospect on the board. Looks like it'll be a good class there. I think it'll be another good class of safeties, too. I really, really do, with Jamal Adams and Quin Blanding and Jabril Peppers, and there are other guys, too, mixed in. Looks like a solid safety class as well. In terms of positions I anticipate being a little weaker, I don't think the quarterback class is great as it looks early on, but again, that is very, very early on. Some of you will look and see that I have Deshaun Watson going #7. That's not necessarily an indictment of the player or the prospect. I don't want you to think that. Part of it is the fact of Tennessee probably wouldn't take a quarterback at #1. Cleveland didn't take a quarterback this year. There's no guarantee they would take one next year. San Diego might not take a quarterback. Dallas might not take a quarterback there. Jacksonville wouldn't. Baltimore probably wouldn't. So it could stand to reason if that was the same draft order, Deshaun Watson could potentially drop there to #7, especially because of the fact some teams may be concerned about his franchise ability being all of maybe 6'2". Now, there's some thought that maybe somebody like a Brad Kaaya might potentially pass him on the board when all is said and done, and that's possible. You have other guys that could find their way into the mix, guy. Patrick Mahomes from Texas Tech, Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State. And again, this is very early on in the process, so I'm throwing some names out there. Luke Falk from Washington State. There could be other names that emerge, other names that come into the mix that come out of nowhere, really. And, well, when they do, you'll know from me. See Carson Wentz in the 2016 NFL Draft is a perfect example of that. Wide receiver, you have a lot of guys, to me, that have potential, but there are a lot of guys with a lot of questions, whether it's system utilization, whether it's size or speed or injury concerns, like in the case of a Mike Williams, that'll be coming back from that neck injury. I know a lot of mock drafts are going to have Juju Smith-Schuster from USC as a #1 wide receiver on the board. I don't see it that way at this point in time. I think actually the #1 wide receiver and the only guy at this moment, worth a top 10 pick in the upcoming draft would be Corey Davis from Western Michigan. He's a little bit bigger than Smith-Schuster. I think he's just as athletic, and I think he's just a more polished, all-around better NFL prospect wide receiver. And especially when you look at the fact that Smith-Schuster is coming from a system, a program in USC that doesn't produce great NFL talent at the wide receiver position. Nelson Aguilar, Marquise Lee, Dwayne Jarrett, Mike Williams, Kerry Colbert, Steve Smith, Robert Woods, some of these guys that came into the league and people had high expectations for, and they just ultimately didn't deliver. I mentioned Dwayne Jarrett. I'll mention him again if I didn't. A lot of productive college players that just didn't translate to the NFL level, and some teams are going to hold that against Smith-Schuster. Whether that's fair or not is yet to be determined, but at the end of the day, that thing is going to hang over him. So we'll see what happens with the wide receiver class, but I don't think it looks as good right now as it has been the past few years in terms of talent at the top, and more importantly in this year's case, in terms of overall depth. The offensive line class I don't think is great, especially at the tackle position. Interior defensive line, you have a couple of guys like Malik McDowell is going to get that buzz as that top interior defensive lineman. He's going to get a lot of comparisons to DeForest Buckner. Some of them fair, and some of them we'll have to wait and see. But doesn't look to be as strong of an interior defensive line class. So if you needed help at that position, you're probably better off investing a higher pick in the 2016 draft. So those would be some of the positions that look strong and look weak. In terms of some of my early favorite prospects to watch so far. Myles Garrett, in terms of his explosiveness off of the edge, has been a lot of fun to watch so far. Jamal Adams, the safety from LSU. A lot of the running backs in this class, it's hard to pick out necessarily any one. Early on, my favorite out of this draft class might be either Dalvin Cook or Royce Freeman, more so than Leonard Fournette. But again, that could change over time. I love Corey Davis as a prospect. Jonathan Allen from Alabama, I think, is a really good football player. So those are just some of the guys that stand out to me very early on. Tim Williams, the edge rusher from Alabama. Those are guys that stand out to me early on in the process, as some of the prospects that I really like. But again, we're a long ways away. This is as much as anything else to look ahead at position strength and weakness in the draft, some of the prospects to keep your eyes out on, and that's about it. The NFL draft is never an exact science, and especially almost a year out, it most certainly is not an exact science right now. So you can share your thoughts about players that I have going in certain spots if you want. If you want to take it that seriously, fine. If you have other prospects that you think I should be keeping an eye out for, or you want to make bold predictions about something's going to happen with this guy or that guy, or they're going to go here or there, feel free to chime in the comment section down below. Still have some more 2016 NFL draft videos to kind of close that out coming up. But in terms of the 2017 NFL draft, this will probably be it until maybe August or so, when I may do another updated mock draft at that point in time and do a preliminary preseason big board ranking.